when someone says something like, he's not for everybody. He's
not for everybody.
More importantly,
and the great thing about it is I'm not trying to be either.
Yeah, by the way, neither was Bill Parcells, right? Like a lot of people aren't for everybody.
No, I ain't for everyone, man.
Can we start calling some games down in Miami? Can we petition for that?
It's a good point. I think they've risen to that level.
I think we should start doing the show from.
You can call some games in Miami. I don't want to call games.
Well, I think we should start doing the show live from Miami.
From Miami, yeah, that makes sense.
We should follow the series. The Boston, we're close enough in New York. We're close. We feel it. Close enough proximity-wise, but Miami, we should be part of the culture.
Yeah, and in fact, if you need to stay in LA, that's okay because we need coverage.
We need coverage
on the West Coast,
LA, Denver.
But on the East Coast, we should also be covering not Boston so much because we're close enough in New York, but Miami. There should be a presence there. I agree.
Well, that's y'all. But number one, that's y'all fault for falling into the trap of there's no superstars on the team and there's only Jimmy Butler. They got
Jimmy Butler's a superstar. I'm just combating what you're trying to build as it relates to this narrative.
You are doing what they call stepping on someone right now in this industry.
He's stepping on you?
No, you took a breath, so I jumped in.
So you figured my breath is enough.
I can smell your breath from here, boy.
Sleep. Well, don't get me started. But it's just that you're looking at this game and everybody's, Miami, they don't have any superstars except Jimmy Butler. They got like 9 undrafted players. How could they ever? Like I said to you a week or so ago, Jay, when they was playing whoever they were playing, and it was like, well, they don't have anybody. I'm like, they do have people. They got enough to keep winning. That's what they have. Well, they can't keep this up. Well, yeah, they can keep it up. They can. I understand when we look at rosters and makeups of teams, we look at the draft and you say, well, there's no way all these guys was passed up. Well, I mean,
Key, are you trying to pull this card on the American people right now? Are you trying to tell me that you just framed this whole conversation, the last minute little soliloquy you went on, that I need to see the tape of where you said that?
Oh no, I'm not. No,
are you telling that you picked Miami to get to this point?
I never said I picked Miami to get to this point. I didn't pick anybody.
Okay.
All I said was that you got to be careful because sometimes the guys at the bottom rise to the top. You got to be careful when you start looking at rosters and thinking people can't play because of where they were drafted or this, that, and the other. They can't beat a team that's loaded, and they just keep doing it. That's all I said. I'm not picking a team. I only got one horse, and that's the Lakers.
Well, I mean, we established that we think Jimmy Butler, I've had him as my top flight person in the playoffs after they beat the Milwaukee Bucks. That was a phenomenal performance. I had them favored against the New York Knicks. I thought they were better. I thought they were tougher against the Knicks, and that was an opponent for them to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Last night, I mean, look, they made life miserable. Like, the one thing you always know about Miami is that Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA. It's a damn shame that he has not won Coach of the NBA, right?
Never won Coach of the Year.
Coach of the Year in the NBA.
And every year he's
damn shame. Yeah. Damn shame. It should never happen. And
he probably has the best argument as best coach in basketball.
For sure. Yeah. And Jimmy Butler, once again, I mean, you're going to look at his offensive output. Poor Robert Williams. I mean, Boston's going to have to play small. They're going to play with Al Horford more than Robert Williams because in the first quarter, it was like, come here, whoever's guarding Robert Williams, come here for a ball screen. I'm going to get to my mini game. Life was never uncomfortable, even though the Celtics were in control 3 quarters out of 4, right? It came down to the Celtics not sustaining, playing defense hard throughout the entire game. And that third quarter, when the Heat go for 46 points in the third quarter, 46-25, boom, difference maker in the ball game. Jimmy does it again.
Yeah, I want to talk about Butler for a second because and the only reason I know about this is because it was going around on social media about how, like, all these people said that Jimmy Butler was a bad signing in Miami or it wasn't going to mean anything. And when I looked, and they included me in the list, and when I looked at the segment, and actually Stephen A. was arguing at the time on First Take the thing that people were mad at. And in fact, the position I took at the time, I only know this because I watched this like a day ago or 2 days ago, is that Jimmy Butler will be a significant figure in the history of the Miami Heat because he's the kind of guy who gets you farther than you ought to go, right? He's a Pat Riley kind of player. I'm sure when he met with Pat Riley, they were speaking each other's language in terms of effort and work and the desire to win all the time. And he's the kind of guy who can make the bed for someone else to join and get you over the top. But what Butler has done, in fact, and we're going to talk about this when we get to Wembayama later on, that's some of the things that have been said about him. What Butler has done is exceeded even those expectations. Like every time you think, yes, I know how good he is and what he's capable of doing, he pushes it a little farther than you thought was possible. So when you bring up the Bucks, it's a first-round series, but the Bucks were favored to win the whole thing by most people. But the odds had them, the analytics had them, Vegas had them as the favorites to win everything, the Bucks. So it happened in the first round because the Heat were an 8 seed. But you're right, Jay, what an upset. And Butler was phenomenal the whole way. Then the Knicks he's supposed to beat, and he did. And now the Celtics.
On a bum ankle.
On a bum ankle. And now the Celtics. So it's one thing to have expectations and they're pitched high. You're going to outkick your coverage. It's another thing to outstrip the expectations when part of your whole brand is he's going to do better than expectations, right? Still do better than that. That's Jimmy Butler. He's unbelievable. 35 points, 20 after the half. Are we taking them for granted still?
No. Just because people are favoring the Celtics doesn't mean that you're taking Jimmy Butler for granted. You're looking at the construction of the roster and you're saying they're a really good team. But like, when does talent prevail? Right? Inevitably, when does talent prevail? And maybe it doesn't. Maybe this team continue, but like they are going to continue to be the underdogs and on every series they're going to play in. This is the reality of the nature. Right. And it's okay. That actually, Miami Heat fans get angry at that, but I'm like, why? That plays into exactly who the hell you are. That gives you the ammunition, key, and the motivation that this team needs that they feed off of to keep winning. You want to continue to be the underdogs. You want to continue to be overlooked. That plays into how you keep beating teams.
Jay.
Yo.
You stayed up last night, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why?
Because I didn't know it was a reality of the nature.
Nature of the reality.
The reality of the nature.
The reality of the nature. Who said it can't be the reality of the nature?
Hey, man, I'm just saying.
Who said it can't be?
I'm just saying that you just brought back up what I said before of how people talked about the roster. And looking at what is the makeup of the roster and saying, hey, this team doesn't really have a chance because there's Jimmy Butler, then there's Bam, and then there's no hero. They don't have anything. And that conversation keeps coming up, but they keep winning. When is it going to get to a point where people just be like, well, they got a coach that can coach no matter what five is on the floor. That's essentially the way I look at it.
And a real number one superstar type guy to go with it.
When you got a coach that can coach, he's up against, just like the young lady said yesterday, Stacy. Or not, it wasn't Stacey, it was somebody, Amber. Amber said yesterday, you got a coach that's going to outcoach the next guy because the next guy is a puppy.
Hey, kid.
This guy's a full-grown Rottweiler, right? Other guy's just a little puppy. He's going to outsmart him.
Key, there's a quote on the screen right now on ESPN2 from Chris Mannix, who will be joining the show at 8 a.m. Eastern. Jimmy Butler he's Chris Mannix from SI. He's the closest thing to Kobe Bryant playing today. Gets to his spots, gets to the free throw line, gets defenders out of position with ball fakes. Monster game and a monster postseason for Butler. Is he the closest thing to Kobe in the game right now? Because people a lot of times will look at Devin Booker because of the complete offense and footwork and everything, but then Jimmy Butler does it on the other end of the floor too, and he has this sense that he's imposing his will on the other team.
Well, Kobe, as Kobe got older, the pump fakes became,
more
pump fakes.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah. He's an older Kobe.
That wasn't really his necessary game, but I would say he is close to Kobe. The difference between Book and Kobe, Book and Jimmy Butler, is Jimmy Butler is essentially, back to that conversation, out there willing his team to victory. Mm-hmm. He's willing his team to victory, right? We saw against the Knicks when he wasn't playing, Jay, they lost. It's just the reality.
Yeah,
Came
right.
back, they won. And he balled in the process. So, I mean, look, you can compare guys. You always want to compare people and look to see who's the closest or who reminds you of somebody. I think Jimmy Butler reminds me of Jimmy Butler. That's the way that I view it.
The whole Kobe thing, like I'm off that.
Who's closer to Kobe than Jimmy Butler?
I don't.
That's
First
why
off,
I said, Jay,
I don't.
Jimmy Butler
I
reminds
hate
me of
this
Jimmy
game.
Butler.
It's like key when it goes into the draft. And like the NBA draft's like, oh, who's the player comp? And you're like, for me, I always end up meshing three guys together to try to give you
good. That's fun
context like of what the game is. Because Jimmy Butler, Kobe's offensive skill combined with athleticism is very different than Jimmy Butler. Like their games are very different. So like the will or drive, those are aspects that, okay, that's one attribute of Kobe, Michael, some other players who have that any player that has a maniacal type mentality, you compare to Jimmy Butler. But the games are not the same.
Right, but I get that. I get it.
But like people flippantly like,
no, but what he
Kobe,
said, but what Chris said, what Chris Mannix said is,
well, we're going to bring Chris on to tell us what Chris Mannix said.
But the quote, it's a quote. We have the Twitter quote. The quote is that Jimmy Butler is the closest thing to Kobe. He's not saying his game is identical to Kobe's. So if you disagree with that, who's closer to Kobe in the game today? As an overall package, who's closer to Kobe?
I don't know if we have a player in the game closer to Kobe today.
So then he would be the closest. So you would agree with the statement.
But I don't know. I don't agree with the statement.
So no one is at all like Kobe Bryant?
Jimmy Butler's game does not remind me of Kobe Bryant's.
Okay.
So like I don't know if I just said I don't know if there's a player in the game that reminds me of Kobe today. There are aspects of players' games that I'm like, okay, like that aspect looks like Kobe, but like Kobe was different.
No, I understand. But when you say closest to, you're not saying he's as good or it's exactly the same or even super similar. You're just saying of everyone around now, he is for example, I like the fact that you meshed two different guys, right? Or three different guys to come up with a comp. But like in boxing, it might be I see Terrence Crawford when he's up and coming. He does certain things that remind me of Pernell Whitaker, but also Marvin Hagler. But if someone were to say who's the closest to Pernell Whitaker or Marvin Hagler, I'd just pick a guy who's the closest, even if he's not identical. Okay. I think Jimmy Butler, given his two-way play, given the things that Mannix brought up, and given his maniacal is the right word, and the position he plays, I would agree with the statement. Probably closer to Kobe than anyone else at the moment.
How so? Give me more descriptive detail. Well, we'll talk about this coming back from break.
For the reasons I just said. All right, look, the Heat take game 1, 5-2 in this postseason when trailing by 10-plus points. Rest of the NBA in the 2023 playoffs under those circumstances, 14-59. How close are we to pushing the panic button when it comes to the Celtics, KJM?
Butler on the right side has to put it up, does.